just saw that. Am I audible? I hope I'm audible.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
So last class, what I showed was two things that one is whatever we have been seeing again and again or hearing again and again, like mean and median are some sort of estimators of a random variable. Okay. If you think of Gaussian distribution, you will get the mean as a ML estimator of location. Okay. So our background, I mean, we started with this location model. So there are two parameters that we might have to determine most of the times. One is the location, okay, of some parameter which is Gaussian distributed. It can be anything like the distribution of age or height or whatever. So this is our mean or mu, and the stretch of this roughly or the variance is nothing but the scale. Okay, so this is location and this is scale. Okay, so now we are looking into location estimation. So the results that we see as we go ahead depends on what we are trying to estimate. Okay, whether it is location or scale. So last class we saw into, I mean, we looked into the location part. So the model was Gaussian model. Yi is the observed data that we see, I data, and we have mu plus mu I, and which is AWG. So this is our assumption, and then we saw that as a ML estimate. Okay? ML estimate of mu is nothing but B under Gaussian assumptions. Okay. Okay, let me make it clear here. This is noise part. Okay. By the way, we are not talking anything about robustness. We are just making some observation here, because as I told you earlier, when we talk about robustness, we don't mention any type of distribution, right? I hope you remember that. When we talked about the BD point, that is breakdown point, or let us say even other parameters that we are seeing today, that is influence curve, okay, or influence function. Even there, we are not making any assumption on the contamination distribution. Okay. So, strictly speaking, whatever we did today is out of robust realm, okay, or realm. That must be clear. Okay.
Yes.
Now, this was one thing, and then we also saw that ML estimate of mu is equal to median. Okay, let me be clear. Mean of what? Mean of yi. Okay, I is equal to 1 to n. And the other one is median of the same thing. Okay, so don't confuse with this mu being mean all the time. Okay, it is some DC level that we are trying to estimate from a noisy observation. I is equal to 1 to n. Both are annual estimates. And this is mu is equal to median under what was the assumption? Laplacian assumption. Only thing, the reason why we assumed Laplacian was, let us say that we somehow, if we impose a sort of distribution on the outliers, so they form the heavy tail part. And with that assumption, we made this. But otherwise, it doesn't have anything to do with median. Okay. As a upshot of what I told just now, um, usually you might have heard of MAD estimators, which you have used in your work, right? So if now we try to calculate sigma, okay? The reason why I'm stressing this point is, if we now calculate the ML estimate of sigma, okay, it will not be MAD, okay? It will not be mean. It will be mean of deviation from the medians. Okay, so that's why I'm telling this point has to be very carefully noted that here we are assuming a distribution on the mass, okay? And it is not related to robustness directly. Only thing that it has to do with robustness is that if we assume that the outliers are to some extent densely populated and they are really outliers in our intuitive sense, from whatever we feel intuitively that an outlier must satisfy, that is, it must be far away from the bulk of the data. So from that assumption, we have made this assumption that Laplacian is one of the candidates which fits such an assumption, and based on that assumption, we have got this median as an ML estimate. Otherwise, there is no relation to robustness. Okay. So in that textbook by Zubair, you can see what will this sigma turn out to be. Okay, for ML estimate under Laplacian assumption. So today I will touch upon that equivariance property, which is important. Okay. So this is where I stuttered and struggled last class. So what is equivariance? So let us say, so what are we trying to do? We using the same notation again. Okay. So this is our estimator function or estimator to call so, and this consists of our data. Okay, so we can be more precise and maybe equality write it as T of x comma y, then what else? Yeah, T of x comma y, so that we are sort of differentiating the independent variable and dependent variable. Okay. So now, what does equivariance tell? Okay. So we must have heard of invariance. So this is not same as invariance. This is equivariance. Okay. So we have this T. Okay. So what should be the condition on T such that equivariance holds good? So let's say if I shift y. Okay. So T of x comma y plus say some gamma, okay, some other shift, okay, must be equal to T of x comma y plus gamma. Okay, this is what is known as shift equivariance. So in equivariance, when we talk about equivariance, we are only worried about the y or the dependent variable. This is shift equivariance, and the other one is scale equivariance. It's not always desired, but one of the desired sort of properties of an estimator. So scale estimator is nothing but if you just scale y by some constant, it must get scaled by that constant, the same constant. Okay. So the thing that I wanted to mention was if you take mean or median, okay, they are both shift and scale equivariant. Do you agree? Okay, so let us see that how it is shift and scale equivariant. So ideally we have what? Y1 up till yn. Okay, this is our z, original z. Sorry, that tick must not be there. So this is our z. Of course, we are not worrying about the x part. Okay, we are only worried about the observations because equivariance worries only about the y part. And now I can say if I want to shift, okay, I can shift each of them by the same amount. Okay? Gamma plus gamma, so on and so forth. And this gamma. Okay. So now if you calculate mean of z plus sorry lambda, it is same as mean of this shifted version. Okay, so similarly you also see that median is also same, follows the same principle. Is this clear? And these two are equivariant. This part is clear, right?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Okay, so now point that I wanted to mention here is that we first looked at these two ways and then we went into this M estimator, right? It's a generalization of ML estimation, where our cost function was sigma rho of Ri is equal to 1 to n, okay? Minimize or whatever, maximus. Minimize or maximus? Minimize. So this is an estimator. And we saw that our solution is nothing but solution to a set of equations is equal to n. Right. Fine. So this M estimator is not equivariant. Okay, this is not equivariant. Okay, it may be equivariant, but it need not be equivariant. So let me make this keyword. Put this keyword need not be equivalent, because as a special case of M estimator you will get mean and median. So in general it need not be equivalent. So how do you prove this now? Any idea? How can you prove this? So let us go back and see Ri is nothing but yi minus summation, at least for the linear regression case, j x o j. This is what going to is the number of dimensions. So only so this is corresponding to z. Okay, that I have this, and corresponding to z dash is nothing but ri plus lambda, which is nothing but ri dash, because I'm just adding this lambda to this y. Now you see we don't have any guarantee that this psi of Ri, okay, is something like lambda of R dash into psi of Ri. Okay. So this need not hold true.
Lambda plus Ri, right? Lambda plus psi Ri.
Just a minute. Yeah, I was thinking of scale invariance. Sorry, scale equivalence.
Right.
Okay. But if you take shift, okay, since I've taken shift, you can take shift. Not necessarily true. Always. Okay, so I will just give you a quick feel of how this estimator might look. Okay, so I'll give you one type. So this M estimator is a big class of estimators, okay, including median and mean. So I'll give you one sort of classical estimator which was given by Huber, okay. Uh, what should call example for M estimator. The very straightforward implication is that if you just scale or use a different scale for observations, you might not get that scaling when you use a M estimator always. Okay? That's a practical implication. So this is Huber, okay? Huber's estimator, which is also known as a soft limiter. Okay? Soft limiter. So here rho of x is what? It is nothing but 1 by 2 x square. If you have x is less than or equal to c, and it is equal to c into mod x minus 1 by 2 c square. For x greater than c. And so what does this imply? This its derivative. Okay, if you take the derivative, what does that look like? It will look like x for x is greater than or equal, so less than or equal to c. And what will happen for the other case? It will turn out to be c into signum function of x, as we had seen in the previous class. Okay. So this is when say this is when x is greater than c. Okay. So now you see here carefully, you observe this signum function, signum of x. Okay. Now, so x is now not the original x that we were talking so far. So in place of x, you have to put ri. Okay. Be careful. In place of x, you have to put ri or ri dash and check the condition. Okay. So if you check that, okay, that is, do you think this equation is valid for any lambda? I made a mistake here.
No.
Yeah. Kaushal, is it clear how it is not valid? If you go back and see the definition of signum function, the only two values it can take is 1 and minus 1, right?
Yes.
So lambda can be anything. I mean, for every lambda, this must hold true. Right. So the solution of this sort of cost function that we saw in M estimator last class, it will not scale up as you scale y, or it will not scale up accordingly as you shift as you accordingly shift in the data. Right. So this is one famous estimator within the class of M estimators. Okay? So that's why I said that this equation that I showed here is not necessarily true always.
So what will be the implication of such thing?
So the implication, as I told you, that if you just instead of measuring something on a centimeter scale, if you measure it on say something like millimeter scale or some kilometer scale, you are just because of that scale difference in measurement, what you would naturally expect is the same scale and shifted or whatever scaled up versions of the results. Okay? Most of the times, intuitively, but you might not get that. Okay, when you have such estimators. I mean, I'm not telling that it is the problem always. Again, that must be borne. So we'll get back to these issues again and again once we go through all the different parameters. Okay. So right now you can just keep this notion at the back of your mind and when we see again different estimators, okay, so these are the parameters that we have to check. One is whether it is say robust to an X outlier or a Y outlier, and then whether it is equivariant or whether it is what's the breakdown point, what is the influence curve, what is the MPC, so on and so forth. Okay. So once we go in detail into each of these estimators, then we will get back to some more deeper issues. So right now you can just assume that this is not the issue in all use cases. It might be an issue. Okay. So far, fine.
Yes.
It is not the, okay? The issue. So next thing that we will quickly look into is sensitivity curve. Okay. Sensitivity curve. So again, as we saw earlier, we had some estimator T. Okay. So this is the estimator, and now what we will do is we will make one more demarcation. That instead of just writing T, we will say Tn, where n is the number of data points that we have, or observations. Okay. So ideally, what we want to have is that as we increase the number of data points, your sort of confidence must increase. So that is the natural thing that you wish to have. So, so towards that end, trying to capture. So this sensitivity curve, as the name readily says, that it is trying to see how sensitive is this estimator with respect to n, and say some sort of single contamination. Okay. So it is the sensitivity curve is defined in this way. Y comma t, sorry, not beta. The textbook they have used beta instead of t. So since I use t, I will go back and use t again. Okay. So t n. Okay, this is what we estimate. So I have dropped that t n of z and so on and so forth. So you have to just assume that all those things. So by definition, that is given by n into Tn of say y1 up till y n minus 1 comma y, okay, minus Tn minus 1 y1 y2 up till yn minus 1. Let us see what it's trying to tell. Okay, so what it is trying to tell is initially I had n minus 1 samples, which is sort of the effect of that on this estimator is captured by this term. Okay, this t n minus 1 of y1 not till y n minus 1. Now what I do is I have one more extra additional sample y, okay, in our observation along with the previous observations. So I'm keeping n minus 1 of the previous, I mean, all the observations I have seen previously intact, and just I'm adding one small another observation. It can be a contaminated one or not. Okay? So let's not worry about contamination right now. So it can be some observation. Okay? So now we have, with this added observations, we have Tn, okay, estimator with n points, and you get the difference, and then we just scale it up by n. Okay, so only one thing that I have to be careful here is, I have to point out here is, usually you want to remove this scaling by n. Okay, and very obvious question is why not scale by 1 by n, right? or some other skill. So this part I don't know, strictly speaking. So we have to keep this question at the back of our head and try to answer this. So this part I don't know. Let's see whether we get an answer for this. So I hope this definition is clear. So this sensitivity curve depends on two or three things. Okay, one is y. Okay, the actual estimator Tn and n. Three parameters.
True. So why we added that n naught?
Oh, sorry, it is n into. Okay, it is not n naught.
Sorry. Okay.
Okay. Again, it's not convolution. Okay. So is this clear? It depends on three parameters. I mean, just by looking at it, it might look like it depends on y and tn only. So that's why I explicitly added the third one, which is n. Okay, so this is a finite in a finite region, we are talking about sensitivity curve. So based on this curve, okay, now we will look at this estimator in a different way.
So is this trying to say that, uh, like, because as my number of samples increases, the contribution of each individual sample is going down. So
Uh,
I have to multiply by n to keep it invariant of n in some sense.
yeah, that would be true if, let's say, Tn scales as 1 by n. Like if you do coherent, what is that? What is it? Coherent averaging. I think it scales by n, right?
No, suppose you have you have n terms, for example.
Correct.
Now, suppose you have only one term. Uh, well, a very stupid case, but suppose you have only one term,
Ah,
then the entire thing is dependent on one term only.
correct,
Now
correct.
you have two terms.
Ah,
Then, in some sense, you have divided the influence across two
correct, correct.
of
So
the
that's what I was trying to
estimator.
tell. So what you are trying to tell would hold if that estimator scales by 1 by n, right? So that's why I
Okay.
told coherent averaging. So in coherent averaging, as we increase the number of values, so let's start with your case only. You had one data point, and then you got two data points. Then obviously you are, I mean, if you are trying to do averaging, okay, this is only if you are trying to do averaging, you would expect that the mean must go down by a scale factor of 2, roughly, right, on an average. So
Uh,
that is
no,
1 by n.
no, actually, I was not saying in terms of accuracy of the estimator or accuracy
Uh,
of the estimate. Sorry, I was just saying that the effect. See, like what I understand by this sensitivity is that you are trying to see that addition of 1 point, how much does it affect our estimate, right? So when we had, for example, low point, sorry, 1 point, exactly, we had 2 points. Uh, like so, I don't know if I'm able to convey clearly at all. Uh, we are uh, earlier our entire estimate was dependent only on 1 point. Now our estimate is dependent on say n points.
Correct.
So the effect of, suppose I add one more point to that estimate, what is it contributing in terms of additional information to the corpus of information that is already there? That I think would be 1 by n.
That's what
No,
I'm trying to
I'm not
tell
saying
you.
okay.
So there, that is what I'm trying to tell you. That is 1 by n, assuming a sort of that the estimator is scaling down by 1 by n. So, I mean, whenever we do some sort of scaling, right? So, or normalization, we want to remove some effect, right? Some effect of the number of data.
Right.
So, so if you take mean, okay, it scales by 1 by n. So as you keep on adding one more point, you have that 1 by n scaling coming to picture, right? So that is sort
Right.
of normalizing the sort of what to say. Um, in a way, it also, I mean, let me not say normalize. It is somehow indicating the effect of the number of data points n.
Right. Right.
So here, I'm not sure whether this n is trying to actually normalize or sort of undo some effect, which is effect of just the number of data points, or I'm not sure about that part. That's what I'm trying to tell.
Okay.
Yeah. So that we have to just check as we go ahead. Okay.
Right.
So when we define influence function, we will see that because there it's a infinitesimal, sorry, not infinitesimal, it's a asymptotic version of this sensitive curve. We will see that that 1 by n comes into picture. Okay, I just wanted to give a sort of doubt so that you remember this. That was the point. Okay. So just remember that this some sort of issue is there with this n. Okay. Okay, because we will uh, understand what is functional and then get back to the influence function. So normally, so let me. So this the definition is clear, right? Of what is a sensitivity curve. Uh,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
so fine. So it is something like so. I will just give a. This is let me say that sensitivity how it will look like. Just a rough idea. So let me draw it for median. Okay, median, and this is the for median. This is not median. For median. So sensitivity curve depends on y and what else? Oh, sorry.
N.
Yeah. Yeah. So this must be the y-axis must be sensitivity and the x-axis must be y. Am I right? So this must be SC of y comma Tn, and here Tn is nothing but median. Okay, and what is y? Y is this axis actually. Okay, so what do you think? How will this look like? Uh, if I got here, this is 0. Okay, so I think we'll get something of this sort. What do you think? This is something like so let us go back to the definition. Yeah, so we'll fix Tn, okay, and then just vary y and see what should happen. So what do you think? So it's a difference between the medians. So you see that let's say um, uh, how shall I write it as? This is the median, okay? The actual, let me say median. Okay, this point is the median. So how does this look like? So if you fix n, so the point that I'm trying to tell is that let's say you have some data, okay, y n minus 1, and you are trying to add this y. Okay? this new guy y. Okay? So when will the median of this data change? What do you think? What should happen to y?
It should exceed the median.
Yes, correct.
Previous, yeah, as in,
Yes. So that's why you will get this sort of what is it, a signum function sort of occur. Of course, with some normalization. Okay. Anyway, we'll come back to this. Okay. We'll try and see comparing the sensitivity curves for different estimators. But I just wanted to give you an idea of how it will look like. Okay. So are you convinced that this is the form of curve that we will be expecting?
agreed.
Sort of, right?
Yes.
So I'm trying
Yeah.
to, I have some data set y1 to yn minus 1, and I want to see how will the difference between the medians, okay? Actually, what I'm interested is in this guy, the difference. It's not equal to minus. Okay? Of course, I must have written this way, okay, according to the definition. But nonetheless, you don't have to worry about. I mean, if you take care of that sign, that's fine. So this is our definition. So I'm interested in this difference. So this difference will suddenly jump when that y crosses the actual median of the previously observed data set, that is y1 to yn minus 1. Is it fine?
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah. So, yeah, we'll come back to this again. Just now, I mean, the purpose for just introducing here is just to see or get a feel of how it might look like. Okay? What it is trying to quantify. Okay. So now I'll go to the difference between a function and a functional. So, when you talk of a function, you have a domain and a range, right? So this is some set S1, some set S2, and this is some mapping. This is a function. Okay, then these are some numbers. Okay, it can be vectors also, right? But a functional is uh, f dash. So what is the difference between a function and a functional? Okay, again here also we have some two sets. Okay, but this set is a different sort of a set here. Okay? Set of all functions. Let me say of interest. So as of now, don't worry about this of interest. So you can just think of it as all types of functions. Okay? All sort of weird functions are also included. So here, when we talk about a function, will be a sort of set of numbers. It can be real numbers, complex numbers. It can also be a sort of vector. One case. And this is also belong to some similar sort of set, okay, set of numbers. But here you see that S1, the set S1 is a set of functions. Okay, it is not just a plain number. Of course, you can view functions as also vectors. Okay, but you see that there is a difference when we give an example. And this is a set of numbers. Okay, roughly. So this is the difference in this one causes the difference in this definition of what is a function and what is a functional. So one quick example of a functional. So this is just for to remember. Okay, I'm not mathematically rigorous here. Distance between two cities. So let's say we have a big country and there are two cities, and then you have different paths, right, to these two cities of interest. So the distance between these two cities will depend on the path that we take, right? So this is nothing but analogous to the function part, right? So let me call this functional as d. Okay. So d of let's say f1 is equal to d1, say 10 kilometers. Maybe if I take a different path, which is nothing but a function now, okay, will be some d2, okay, say 20 kilometers, right? Is this part clear?
Yes.
Right? Uh, so uh, let's go ahead. So why did we come to this definition of functional? Okay. So we have some finite data set and we have this estimator. Okay. So whenever we do any sort of estimation, okay, with this limited data, okay, in practice, what we are dealing with this sort of empirical distribution and not Gaussian distribution. Okay. So so in order to account that, okay, we are coming to this notion of functional. Okay. So let Fn, okay, be the empirical distribution. When we say empirical distribution, it is just based on the observed data, okay, and not the actual distribution from which the data was sort of sampled or observed, okay, of the sample. So this empirical distribution solely depends on the samples that we have or data points that we have, that is given by y1, y2, blah blah blah. Yn. So how do I write that? Uh, I think we have to be careful here. Just observe this carefully. This part, this definition part. So here you have an indicator function one of yi being lesser than or equal to t. So what is an indicator function? An indicator function has the subscript or as an argument a set a. Okay. So now if you get something in the set A, okay, uh, okay. So now what does this tell? Okay. So 1 half yi is equal to, so it's a function, okay? So this whatever script, no, what is this? How do I call this? Is it a script or a Calibri? Whatever. I didn't get that. Sorry.
Sorry, you said?
No, I didn't get. How do you call this? This sort of a one.
Uh, yeah.
Script.
Oh, script. Scripted,
Uh,
it comes with that
Boldface.
math BB,
BB,
math
math BB.
BB slash math BB man.
So we will call this BB. Okay, not BB. BB. So this is a function, whatever this BB wala is a function. So with value 1, if yi is lesser than or equal to t, okay, and 0 otherwise. So let's plot this just to get a feel of what is happening. Okay, so this is fn of t, and this is t. Okay, so let's say, let us just spread this all these points that we have. So this is y1, this is y5, or y2, y3, okay, y5, y5. Let me make it y6. So So when t is in this range, okay. So when t is in this range, what is our empirical distribution? Fn of t. T in this range, okay, belonging to this range, say from minus infinity. So when t is ranging from minus infinity to till y1, okay, the first sample, if you arrange it in order, fn of t is 0. Okay. Now once you find so fn of y1 is what? If you have really understood this definition, it is 1 by n. Is it clear how it is 1 by n?
True, true. Because only one value is one, the rest are all zero.
So similarly, if I now see what is the value of fn of t when t is in the second interval, this first interval, so the second interval, okay, just before y2, then again it will be 1 by n, okay, for interval 2. But if I now touch upon y2, it will become 2 by n, right?
Correct.
Right. So in essence, what is it capturing? It is trying to capture your knowledge, your what do you say? That you don't have, or you are imposing a sort of uniform distribution across the data that you have seen or obtained. Is it fine? Can I tell like that? So we don't know the actual distribution. We are observing something. Okay. All this sort of Gaussian and all those things is the model assumption that we are trying to make. Okay. But let us say we don't have that in our case. And in our case, that is robust estimation, we are actually expecting to sort of account for that, right? Because we said that on contamination, we will not put any sort of distribution. Is that fine?
Right.
So, so you have to take care of whatever outliers you are seeing with some distribution, right? And you cannot say instead of uh, uh, assuming some sort of biased distribution, which is Gaussian, because it is high around that mean and then it goes to zero asymptotically as you go away from the mean, right? So it is in a way biased. When I say it is biased, it is not giving equal weights to all observations. So when we talk about robustness, we want to give, though we don't want to give a sort of biased sort of distribution on the data, we have to somehow take care of what we are observing. So one way of taking care of the unbiasedness of the probability distribution is this uniform distribution. Does it make sense?
Yes. So, so you are saying that suppose you have this uh, empirical distribution, it sort of tells you the range in which the y1 to yn lie.
Yeah, correct. So it only depends on it. So in just okay, in just one sentence, it doesn't depend on any assumptions about the data.
Okay.
In a way, it is unbiased. When we, if you go back and see our breakdown point definition, you see that when we talked about the replacement samples, right, on the connection, we didn't say that it follows Gaussian distribution or Poisson distribution. We said that we replace the say some m points by some arbitrarily chosen points. It need not follow any distribution. That is what we said, if you remember, right?
Right.
So somehow we are trying to capture that into our sort of metrics performance metrics. Okay, so towards that end, we have this empirical distribution. So let me make this point clear. So Fn solely depends on what? Observed data, which is what we want to capture now. Observed data and no assumptions on its distribution, except uniform distribution. Okay. I mean, that is what you can do, right? So if you go back and see information theory, so what is that distribution when you talk of discrete distributions, which has high entropy or high uncertainty?
Uniform.
Exactly. Okay. So, and be careful. Here also I'm dealing with discrete distributions because I am only observing y1 to yn. So if you are not understood, let's take a uniform distribution in continuous case. Okay, let's say x and not n. Okay, so this is what is theoretically happening. Okay, this is what is nature trying to do. But what we are observing is only some points out of this. Let's say we have picked some points. Okay, say 5 points. This is y1, y2, y3, y4, y5. So from this y2, y1 to y5, based on this data, we cannot make any assumption on the distribution. Okay. Does it make sense?
Yeah, right.
I mean, of course, you can make, provided you are not arbitrarily sort of sampling. Okay. If the samples were not, if the samples were independent and identically distributed, then probably you would have made some sort of a guess. But as I reminded you, the points are arbitrarily taken. Okay, that arbitrarily makes a lot of impact here. Because see what can happen is now I'll change my color. Okay, in color to show this. I can take the next set of distributions. Maybe the observations that I made could end up in these values. Okay, so instead of y3, the same value I can see, isn't it? And I might find y5. So now, what do you think? I mean, if you go by our sort of fitting some distributions, you might think that this is a sort of looks like a Poisson distribution, right? Or some sort of
Yes.
skewed distribution.
Exponential. Right.
Just by having, I mean, just by basing our knowledge on our observations alone, without any assumptions made on the nature's distribution, right?
Right.
So that is what we are trying to capture here when we talk about this Fn. Okay. Is this point clear? Okay. This is because if we have this sort of a uniform distribution, then it is like it's like we are taking care of the worst possible sort of uncertainty. Okay, and be sort of unbiased to our unbiased with our assumptions. Okay, because if we take this part, this blue part, it will be a leftist one. So we neither want to be a leftist nor a rightist, want to be unbiased. Okay. So now getting back to our definition. So this is a sort of empirical distribution which depends solely on data and no assumptions. Okay. No biased assumptions, to be more precise, about the distribution. So what? So once we have discussed this, I mean, we defined this. So what? Okay, is the next question. Why did we define this? We defined this to sort of see or sort of measure our Okay. So ideally, right, so we can get different data every time we run the same experiment. Okay, every day you look at the receiver, you might get a different set of data. Okay, so obviously the distribution that you see, okay, the empirical distribution that you see is different, right? And whatever you do with the data is based on this empirical distribution, isn't it?
Right.
So you might assume, but that need not be true. That assumption need not be true, need not hold always, right? You might assume that Gaussian, but let's say you might assume that this is you are trying to sample from this Gaussian, but unfortunately, the first three samples were taken from this paper, okay, and later when you took some more samples, it uniformly was, I mean, it was not biased or it was not dependent. Okay? So that might be the issue. Okay, so whatever you try to come up with or process will be based on empirical distributions, obviously. So what we are trying to do with this Fn or functional is the following. So we want this property for our estimator. That is, we don't want or we want to have this sort of a characteristic for our estimator. So that is as n tends to infinity, you want so if Saket remembers, so this is all about the convergence, okay? So this is convergence, if I'm right, it is in probability. Let's not worry about what is in and with and all those things, but this is the definition, okay? For me, this is what we want to see. Okay, so this is, let me say, uh, ideal estimator or a sort of asymptotic guy. Yeah. So I have to be clear here. So this is F T of F. Okay. So if you have more data points as you uh, get more and more data points, the true estimator must match with the empirical estimator, right? So this is what we want, correct?
Right.
Yeah. So this is some property that we want to have. So now I will just show it for me, just to be comfortable with the notation. Okay, this is for me. If T is mean. Okay. So what is T of n? It is as we saw earlier also, I is equal to 1 to n. Right? And can I write this in this way? This is something that we need to get used to. Okay? So let me expand this. So if you see, so this is your cumulative distribution function. Do you agree? That's why the capital F came. This is your cumulative distribution function. That is given T, I will see what is the sum of probabilities till that point. Correct?
Right.
So now let me just show you. So obviously, when you have this, if you want to get the PDF, so how do you get the PDF? D by dt of
Derivative.
Yes, correct. So ideally, I must have written this guy, isn't it? This is the definition for me. Makes sense.
Right.
So instead of this guy, I have just substituted the other thing. That is, if I take dt on the other side, the way we do from our 12th standard knowledge of calculus, this is what we do. So, I mean, the point that I want to make here is we need to be comfortable with this notation also, the first notation. Does it make sense now?
Yes, yes, it does.
Kaushal, is it fine?
Yes.
I mean, it looks a bit weird in the beginning, but we need to get used to this notation. Because in most of the papers and other places, this is the notation that is used. The D, capital F and T, first one.
Yeah.
Whereas we are used to the second notation most of the times. Okay, so now, okay, with all this fuss, what are we trying to finally see or show? So we just now defined the sensitivity curve. Okay. So if we just recap whatever we did till now about sensitivity, we said that it is a function of y, tn, right? So now let us be more precise to include the effect of this, the particular data set that we have. Okay. Okay, so to include that, we have to include Fn also. So previously we just include these two guys, but we now have to include this also, Fn. So this is nothing but T of 1 minus 1 by n. So carefully note this, what is happening. 1 by n delta y, okay, minus T of Fn minus 1 divided by 1 by n. Okay. So let us carefully analyze this equation, what has happened. So 1 minus 1 by n into Fn minus 1. Okay, this is the original data that we have, right? Fn minus 1, the distribution. And now, I mean, if you just see what is Fn minus 1, this is based on y12. Okay, let me not say equal, okay? This is based on y12, yn minus 1. And for each of them, you are giving a weight, how much? Sorry, yeah, 1 by minus 1. Correct?
Right.
So now, okay, if you have to see it clearly, what is this? N minus 1 divided by n. Okay, to Fn minus 1. So this is what we have in this first part. Okay. And then we have this delta 1 by n delta y. So delta y is nothing but delta, Dirac delta, centered at y. Something like delta y minus, sorry, delta, how can I write it as? I have to write it as delta centered at y. There is no other way of writing it. Because you see here, the argument of t is not a point. Are you observing that? See, this is now sort of distribution, probability distribution.
Correct. So you are saying the absolute values of y now don't matter.
Yes, yes. I mean, that is not directly taken into account, but indirectly. Okay, if you are not getting that, how it is? So let us
So,
just take some simple example. Y is equal to 1, y is equal to 2. Okay. So there are only 2 points. Let's say capital N is. So how will your Fn look like now? So till 1 it is 0. Then 1 it will suddenly raise to 1 by 2. Okay. It will be there for till you get, and this guy is 1 and this is 1 by 2. Okay. Um, Fine.
Yes.
But here, what we want to capture is the distribution of uh, the current observed data. Because as we just saw here, if you just look at the red points, it might look like it's uniform. Okay, from whatever you observe. Okay, not whatever we have assumed. From whatever you observe, it might look like an uniform guy. And if you now take the blue ones, it might look like a skewed thing, right? A skewed distribution from whatever we observe, right? So that is what we are trying to capture here. Okay. So this delta y is a function. Okay. Again, a distribution with only one. It's some sort of almost sure event. Does it make sense?
right.
Okay. At y. Okay. This was for example, just for illustration purpose. Fine. So you see that now from Fn minus 1, we are going to Fn where we had a extra point y. And to get the right normalization, we weighed this Fn minus 1 with 1 minus 1 by n. And because of that, we get this n minus 1 on the numerator, and that will somehow cancel this n minus 1 and we get 1 by n overall. Correct? Makes sense?
You're saying asymptotically it will go Fn minus 1 only.
Uh, Hold on. So Fn is what? Let's take an example. Fn is a function like this. Okay. Let's take the same example again. So this is 1, this is 2. Okay. Only 2 points were there initially. So this is when n is equal to 2. Let's take n is equal to 3 only. So this is Fn minus 1. Okay. So Fn, now let me take some other point. Okay. So earlier I had only observed y1 is equal to 1, y2 is equal to 2. Now let me observe y3 is equal to 4. Now, see whatever data I observe, the empirical distribution must be such that the sum of all the probabilities will be what? 1, right? See here,
Right.
so this is 1 by 2, and here also the probability that I see 2 is also 1 by 2. So if I add this, so this must be 1 by 2, so that this is 1. So now, let's say you added one more point, which is y3, which is equal to 4. So now, what would you ideally expect this Fn to be with that uniformity assumption? What do you expect? Y3 is equal to 4, y2 is equal to 2, y1 is equal to 2. Again, you would want to see something like this, isn't it? Where this level is 1 by 3, this level is again 2 by 3, and this is 3 by 3, which is 1, isn't it? So this 1 by 3 is nothing but 1 minus 1 by n, right?
Okay.
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 So you are trying to sort of rescale the sort of probability weights that you gave to your observations, your previous observations. You want to split that probabilities so that at the end of the day, you again have uniform probability with the additional added point. So here you have added this delta y is delta y is nothing but delta at 4. Makes sense? So let me put it in a more picture square. Okay. So here you have a delta function at 4. Okay. We have 1, 2, and so on and so forth. Now you have to scale both of them to get something which is also a probability density, distribution function. So what will you do? Obviously, you will weigh this by 1 minus 1 by n, and this by 1 by n. Isn't it? You will get
Okay.
Sort of roundabout way of telling the same thing. Okay? But in plain English, it is nothing but you are distributing the weights on each points that you saw earlier, because now you have another point y3. And because you have y3, a new point, wherever you see that y or y3, you are putting a weight of 1 by n and rescaling the weights that you gave for the other points by 1 minus 1 by n. Makes sense now?
Yes.
Right.
Right? Because earlier to this y1 you gave the weight of 1 by 2. That weight is nothing but the probability, empirical probability. Right? So now you are giving the weight 1 by 3 because you have to account for the newcomer or the latecomer. Fine? Makes the idea clear?
Yes.
So if this is clear, then we can quickly jump to the asymptotic question. Okay, so probably today we'll end with that definition alone, so that we can ruminate on this fact. Okay, so this is the influence function, which depends on. So instead of fn, I will straight away write f. Okay, let's see why it is soon. So this is limit epsilon tends to 0 from the top. Okay, so we'll discuss the details in the next class. But for this session, we'll see this. Okay. So this is the asymptotic question of this, where we are taking epsilon to be 1 by n. Okay, and here epsilon is equal to 1 by n, and our epsilon is nothing but the contaminated distribution, which is obtained by 1 minus epsilon into f, the previously seen data points, plus a delta guy. Okay, correct? Delta y, and with the weight epsilon. Remember, this epsilon is nothing but 1 by n. Okay, if you remember that, it is easy to see. Otherwise, it looks like what is he trying to do with all these things. Okay. So you must remember, whenever you see this epsilon, just try to remember 1 by n. Makes sense now?
Yes.
So in a continuous case, what you want to see is if you slightly sort of disturbed by an amount of epsilon at the point y. Okay, so we are taking two things into account. One is we obviously have a previously known distribution. Okay, it is empirical, and now we want to see the effect of this outlier in two ways. One is, what if I give the probability of 1 by n or epsilon to that, and you can give that probability at any point in the observation, that is y. Okay, on any point of this line, the y-axis or the x-axis here is this horizontal axis. Your outlier can be present, right? So that is what we are trying to measure, the effect of an outlier at any point and with any sort of empirical distribution, epsilon. very small infinitesimal weight. So how will the difference change? And that you are trying to normalize by 1 by n. Does it make sense? So if you are not getting the essence of this, so let me write this 1 as n minus of n minus 1. Now does it make sense? Divided by n.
Right.
Okay, so you just change the number of points and then you are normalizing that also. And you are changing seeing the difference between the, what is that, the values of the estimators. And so here, okay, to just wind up this. So here in this definition, y is the value of outlier or contamination with weight with probability epsilon. That's it. Because if you don't remember this discrete case, and if you just see this, it doesn't make any sense, at least at the outset. Okay, this will be a more mathematically rigorous definition of the influence or the sort of sensitivity curve. So remember that all these things that we got till now in defining influence function are starting from the sensitivity curve. If you go back and some slides back, this functional sort of concept we needed so that we can put it in continuous time domain and the asymptotic question. So this is how we started. So let's see how this n is coming into picture, maybe in the next class.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Any doubts so far? And this whole development, we could go without all these things also, but I just wanted to bring that a rigorous picture, so that now if you go back and read the paper, you will not be sort of you will have that blank sort of a face. That was the intention. That's it. Otherwise, it is not a big thing. Whatever we discussed till now, at least from a plain English point of view, it is not a intuitive point of view. It is not a big thing. Fine.
Yes.